Hi there, it's Nicole, and today I have a card featuring the Hero Arts color layering fish stamp set and dies. They are perfect for creating underwater ocean type scenes. I just love these because the color layering stamps allow you to create layered images without the additional bulk. Just beautiful, beautiful. I love the color layering stamps. To start, I am going to be using some soft vanilla ink to stamp the base layer of both the large and small fish. And then I'm going to use the ombre butter to orange soda ink pad for the second layer. And then I'll use some black ink for that last layer, which is the face on the fish. That's just going to make the whole thing pop. And I did create a couple of these just to make sure I got the exact stamped image that I wanted. I can save those additional fish for another project or even create another card using this design if I want to. I'm going to stamp both of these exactly the same. I love the color layer, or the ombre inks rather, for this because that just gives even an additional look of that tricolor ink pad for the layering. I think it's just incredible. I love them. Again, I'm going to use some black ink to stamp the fish face, and that just finishes off the entire design. Really makes it pop. I'm also going to stamp my greenery kind of seaweed images here using another ombre ink pad. This is the Limed Forever Green. I did try out one other color of green and I just did not like that at all. So I just stuck to this particular ink pad. I die cut the images with the coordinating color layering fish dies, the frame cuts dies, and I'm using some glossy accents on the eyes on the fish, and I'm going to let those completely dry. I have got a rectangle now that is 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches from some watercolor cardstock. I have another piece that I am going to die cut a border from using the Pretty Pink Posh Stitched Borders 1 kind of rounded edge die. On my background panel, I am going to apply Salty Ocean and Tumbled Glass Distress inks to create my water. Watercolor paper is definitely much easier to blend on than traditional cardstock. However, that could totally be done as well. I chose the watercolor cardstock because I am going to be using the distress sprayer and adding water droplets to the design for some distressing. I kept my darker color towards the bottom of the panel, and it slightly lightens as I go up. I felt like I didn't get quite as much dark ink with the Salty Ocean that I wanted to, so I'm going to go back in and apply more of that ink to that area until I get it exactly the way I want it to look. So I did add more of that ink. You can see it's not blended very well, so I'm going to go back with my Tumbled Glass Distress ink and blend that out. I didn't even re-ink it, I just blended it out with that. Make sure and get a nice seamless transition from the dark color to the light. You could probably also just stick with one color and just lighten it up near the top if you wanted to. I'm going to spritz the background with water from a distress sprayer and then blot that dry with a paper towel. Once that's completely blotted dry, I am going to take both the Salty Ocean and Tumbled Glass Distress inks again and ink up the Hero Arts Confetti Bold Prints background stamp. Blending those two inks together, I'm going to flip it over and press that right to my background. That's going to give me those like little water droplets type look. Now it's going to be pretty bold when I take that stamp off. You can see it's pretty dark. What I'm going to do is take a paper towel and then just kind of blot it dry, and then I'm going to buff it out, and it's going to kind of help blend those inks, lighten it a little bit, and I really like how that looks once I've kind of buffed all of that extra moisture from the background. On my border, I'm going to take some Gathered Twigs Distress ink for the sand along the water bottom there. Apply my ink, kind of darker near the top, lighter near the bottom. Once I have my ink all applied, I am going to take the distress sprayer again, spritz this with water from the distress sprayer, and blot it dry. If it gets a little too light in areas, you can definitely go back with your ink blending tool. I did not even apply extra ink to it, and just go over it a little bit, adding a little bit more color in. It's still going to give those distressed areas, but maybe not quite as light. So I've got my seaweed, I've got my fish, but I really want to give the illusion of a little bit more dimension, like the whole deep here of the water, it's completely filled with seaweed. But I don't want it to all be green. I want it to look like some of it's further away. Before I do that, I am going to stamp a greeting from a Simon Says stamp set here. It says, "Hello, friend." But then I'm going to take my border and a pencil, and I'm just going to draw a little line so that I know where to stamp my seaweed. This is just going to give the illusion that there's going to be much more seaweed in the ocean than what's right around the fish. I'm going to take that Salty Ocean Distress ink and using second generation stamping, so I'm inking it up with Salty Ocean, stamping it off once, and then stamping it along that pencil line. It's going to be a really light stamped image all the way across. And that's just to give the illusion of that depth. And I want to make it really nice and full. Make sure you stamp it off every time, otherwise it's going to be really big, bold blue, which is not what I wanted. I wanted it to look like it was far off in the distance. So the second generation stamping works great for that. Then I'll add my border along the bottom, and I can start building my scene. Now the seaweed pieces are so thin that I used a liquid adhesive, which I don't use all that often, but there's just really not a better way to attach those, I don't think. And I'm going to start building up with some of it in front of the fish, some behind. I'm using an acrylic block to hold down those pieces while the liquid adhesive dries. And really building up my scene. You can kind of start to see, once I've added a few of the elements, how that second generation stamping in the background really adds to the look of the whole scene. And I just love the fish. I think they're beautiful. I'm going to continue to fill in with all these little bits and pieces of seaweed. I, in fact, went back in and stamped more pieces. I realized I didn't have near enough. I wanted a whole bunch more. Again, using that ombre ink pad so that even the seaweed has that tricolor look with the green inks. Line up all of those dies, the coordinating frame cuts, and die cut a bunch of these again. I'm going to take all those remaining pieces now and fill them in all the way across. I'm going to round the corners with the 1/4 inch corner rounder using the Crocodile corner chomper. I've had this forever. Just a slight rounding of all 4 corners. I'm going to finish with some little bubbles using the Hero Arts 3mm pearls. So just do a little trio of those for each of my fish. I'm using a craft tool to separate and pick those up and place them on my card. Then on the inside, I want to give a nice finishing touch. So I'm going to finish with an additional greeting from that same Simon Says stamp set. The friendship messages. It says, "You are one of my favorite thoughts." So on the front it says, "Hello, friend." And then it looks great as is, but I wanted to add even a little bit more interest to the inside of the card. So first I am going to use my Teflon bone folder to fold that in half and round all 4 corners just like I did my front panel. I'll go ahead and attach that front panel as well. I'm using a nice strong adhesive using the Glue Glider Pro. And then I'll line up my card panel and attach that to the front. But I'm going to flip that back open, and I'm going to take one of my fish and go ahead and do that color layering right there in the bottom right corner. Again, soft vanilla for the first layer. I'll use that butter to orange soda ombre ink for my second layer. Get it lined up perfectly, especially since I've already kind of attached the front panel to the card. Make sure and add the eye. And it would look great if I left it just like this, but I thought it definitely needed seaweed just like the front of the card. Gives it that nice finishing touch. I'll take that ombre lime to forever green ink again. And I'm going to stamp a couple of the seaweed panel or pieces, images, right over my fish. There's one. I'll do the second one, and I'll add a third one kind of in front of him. And you can see that that just finishes off the inside of the card perfectly. Thanks for joining me for this card featuring the color layering fish stamps and dies from Hero Arts. The supplies I've used to create this card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos showcasing color layering stamp sets. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.